Thank you, President Cauce. I think when you called me in January, I said to you on the phone, I could count on one hand the number of times I've actually had chills during a phone call. So thank you. I have to tell you how much it means to me to be here in this stadium today. I think the course of my life was set right here. From the time I could walk, my father was bringing me to Husky games here in the stadium. By the time I was at Queen Anne High School, I was racing down to the ticket office to buy a $3 ticket to sit in the bleachers right over there. And I think I knew what I wanted to be. Sonny Six Killer, right? But in 1970, I think everybody wanted to be Sonny Six Killer. Graduates, congratulations. It's been a long journey and you've made it. You have so much to be proud of. But I'll bet I know how some of you feel. You're standing here on the verge of a major change in your life. You're not exactly sure what's going to happen next. And you're wondering, did I make the right choices? Did I pick the right courses? The right field of study? Did I choose a career path that'll guide me for the rest of my life? And the short answer, probably not. You're here with a lot of alumni today. I think you ought to take the opportunity to say, what did you think when you graduated? What did you think when you left college? What are you actually doing now? I came to the UW during Watergate, and I was hoping to save the world through my journalism. As difficult as it might be to imagine today, at that point in time, journalists were heroes. I thought for sure journalism would be my career. But when I was 16 years old, on a lucky break, I landed a job as a ball boy for my Supersonics. And when I started school here, I had a part-time job with the Sonics. Little did I know that I would end up working for the Sonics full-time, or end up having a career that would include 4 NBA championships, 2 WNBA championships, and an induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame. There's no way I could have possibly imagined that when my time at Washington was ending. So whatever you've imagined your career will be today, I guarantee you, you will be wonderfully challenged, you'll be buffeted, you'll be turned upside down and inside out before, if you're lucky, you find that passion that excites you every day of your life. One thing I would say is take chances. And I don't mean parachuting or cliff diving. I mean take a chance on yourself when opportunity presents itself. Because I bet you'll find as you go through your career in life, there's one voice that's telling you you aren't qualified for a job or a new opportunity, that you don't have the skills, that you shouldn't speak up, that it's just too much to take on. And that voice, most likely, will be your own. You'll worry you don't meet the requirements, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, to which I say, how do you know unless you try? Give yourself permission to surprise yourself. Take a chance, give it a try. You'll amaze yourself. Now, this next part has a little story with it. It concerns a time a young woman invited her grandmother over to her house for a cup of coffee. When her grandma got there, her granddaughter was in a real state. Her beloved cat had climbed a tree. It's 30 feet up in the air. She didn't know what to do. Call 911, call the fire department. And her wise grandma put her hand on her shoulder and looked her in the eye. Honey, have you ever seen a cat skeleton in a tree? You haven't. That's because they don't die up there. Somehow they figure out a way to get themselves down. And that's going to be you. Until now, you've had a lot of help from teachers, mentors, family, and if you haven't already, I hope you're using this weekend to say thank you and tell them how much you appreciate them. But there are going to be problems ahead. Not one day, okay, glad we got that worked out kind of problems. There will be difficult, persistent problems that may not have a good or easy answer. And you're not going to be able to ask someone else to step in and fix them. You're going to have to work them through. You're going to have to get yourself out of that tree. I know because I spent the majority of my personal life in that tree. I had a secret. I was different. But my difference wasn't one that showed. It wasn't the color of my skin or my gender. It wasn't the God I worshiped or the language I spoke. I'm gay. And in keeping my secret, I don't usually get applause for that. It's nice. And in keeping my secret and staying in that tree, I was prepared to make whatever personal sacrifices I had to make sure I could have a career in sports and to make sure that the people I cared about the most still loved me. I was good at it, or at least I thought I was. Not once in my entire career did someone ask me if I was gay. At work, I managed to construct a fence around my personal life. People I worked with respected my boundaries. I didn't ask about who they socialized with last weekend, so they didn't ask me. I never acted differently at work. I never lied, but I was never completely honest, was I? Eventually, I reached a crossroads. My father had passed away. My mother had been diagnosed with lung cancer. I had a relationship breakup in large measure because I couldn't bring the most important person in my life into my work environment. I was ready to get out of that tree. It was time, but how? I asked a friend, a New York City media guru, to meet me for dinner on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. The scene is going to look great in the movie. A snowy night, a table by the window. I told Dan I needed some help to put my story in context. I could privately share the fact that I was gay with the people I worked with and be completely at peace with myself. But I asked Dan if he thought there was something more that could be accomplished if I came out in a more public way. He looked across the table at me and he said, "Ricky," he always calls me Ricky, "if you're willing to do this, I want to help." And I think it's page A1, New York Times. That was my oh shit moment, really. That Dan Clorist, introduced me to another Dan Barry, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer, and it turns out he was right. My story landed right there on the front page of the New York Times. It took me a long time to get out of that tree, but when I did, it was an overwhelmingly positive experience. It's given me a platform to talk about equality, talk about diversity and inclusion, especially in a profession, men's sports, that lags our society at large on those subjects. You're going to inevitably find yourself stuck in your own unique tree. And you know what? You too are going to figure out how to get yourself down. When my story was published in 2011, there's no way anyone could have imagined the pace of social change that would unfold around the issues of sexual orientation and gender equity in the next few short years. In 2015, the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage, unimaginable a few years before. My partner Todd and I were invited to President Obama's White House Pride celebration in the last year of his office in 2016. In his speech that day, it was his warning that I remember most. While he cheered all the progress that had been made, he said, "It's not inevitable, though. History doesn't just travel forward, it also travels backward." 3 days later, the Pulse nightclub shooting took place in Orlando, killing 49 people. History does not just travel forward. In our world today, there are many trying to push us backward. Creating conflict between groups of people is now political strategy. Please, be among those who want to keep our focus on traveling forward. I've always been especially intrigued by people different than me. Thank you. I'm pretty sure I've never learned anything when I was talking. And only occasionally do I learn something when conversing with people just like me. Diversity in your life and career adds richness and texture you can't experience by reading the same blogger or watching the cable news channel, the same one every day. In business, diversity and inclusion may be a social strategy, but it's definitely a success strategy. Engaging people with different backgrounds and different experiences and truly valuing their ideas results in better decision-making, period, guaranteed. Embrace it because of how it enriches you as a person, and embrace it because it brings you success in your career. In my mid-20s, my mother was helping me wallpaper a new apartment in the Magnolia neighborhood. She started asking me questions like, "Are you having trouble meeting girls?" By afternoon's end, I told her what she already knew, that I was gay, and we cried and hugged. And the next day, Mom and Dad both came over, and we cried and hugged. And then my mom said, "I don't know why you thought it was such a big deal. You know your Uncle Bob is gay." And I said, "Uncle Bob is gay?" Uncle Bob was my dad's brother, a doctor, a world traveler, smart, funny, and our absolutely favorite relative. Wow, wouldn't that have been good information for me to have? And that's really how I think about my decision about coming out. If my small gesture could make some young boy or girl feel they weren't alone and they could succeed because of who they are, not in spite of who they are, it'll all be worthwhile. Maybe for some young boy or girl out there, I could be that person that I never had. Of the thousands of emails I received at that time from parents, from people I'd met in my life, from total strangers, the ones that touched me the most were the ones from kids who just wanted to reach out and connect with somebody who might understand what they were going through. And now, thanks for being here today. I can not only tell them that people will accept them for who they are, but you might even get invited back to your alma mater to give a commencement speech. For me, coming out will be the most important thing that I ever do. And that is the real quest, isn't it? Not just to find your career path or your life's profession. You're really only looking for one thing. Find the most important thing you will ever do, and then go out and do it. Thank you. Good luck. Go Huskies.